I thought there's, in my world, when you work for a company, you're often called a corporate counsel. So I thought that's what you were saying,
True.
as opposed to corporation counsel, like Howard Rifkin or something like that.
All right. Okay, so we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight's Labor, Education, Workforce, and Youth Development meeting. Let me go over all the stuff HPA-TV has broadcasted. So thank you for joining us for today's June 16th Labor, Education, Workforce, and Youth Development meeting. We are streaming on HPA-TV, on Comcast, and from Frontier Government Channels 96 and 32. It'll also be streamed on HPA-TV. It's on HPA-TV regular TV, Facebook page, HPA-TV's Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon TV apps. It will also be rebroadcast and made available on the HPA-TV YouTube channel. So kudos to HPA-TV for expanding their outreach. So today we're going to switch up the order, but I'll introduce folks today. We have committee member Councilman Jimmy Sanchez. We have Attorney Philip Wellman. We have Chief of Staff Extraordinaire Vaz. We have Director Extraordinaire of Department of Children, Youth, Family, and Recreation, Kim Oliver. So thank you all for joining us today. So we're going to switch over it around a little bit to provide the floor. We're going to go with item number 3 first, which is Mayor Bronin with the company resolution confirming the appointment of Philip Wellman to the Hartford Stadium Authority. So Attorney Wellman, the floor is yours if you want to just give us a quick bio about yourselves and why do you want to do this volunteer work.
Great, thank you, Councilman. So my name is Philip Wellman. I've been a resident of the city of Hartford for 30 plus years now. I'm a lawyer by background. I went to the University of Connecticut School of Law, so attended law school here in Hartford back in the early 90s. Right now I serve as a senior compliance officer for the Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance Company, and I am responsible for overseeing regulatory compliance and ethics around their mutual fund and investment advisory businesses. And I've been with Mass Mutual now for over a dozen years. Just quickly, I've been in private practice for a number of years, worked at a large Hartford-based law firm for when I came out of law school. I also worked for a Hartford-based securities firm for a number of years before they were acquired and moved out of Hartford, and then I've been at Mass Mutual. As far as this role, I was contacted about the opening on the HSA board. It was of interest to me because of my long-standing connection and work in Hartford. I have had an interest in sort of development issues generally, and this seemed like a nice opportunity to engage, give back to the community a bit, and also to get my toe a little bit into more of a political kind of element. Although I appreciate a very sort of limited, small way, but still one that I think would be very helpful and a nice development opportunity for me.
Thank you for that. Councilman Sanchez, any questions?
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. So, Attorney Wellman, thank you for having the interest to joining the HSA. Now, one of the comments I always state is that sometimes very time consuming. It takes a lot of dedication to that time. And I'm wondering if you had reviewed that position, the seat, and what it entails.
I have. So I've not only reviewed a summary of the board position, I've had an opportunity to talk with a couple of folks about it who are directly involved with the board. And it feels like a position that lends itself very well to my sort of legal and finance backgrounds. And I think as well as from a time commitment, it seems like it's one that I can manage quite well.
And what do you hope to? Not sure if it needs improvement, but what do you hope to? What do you hope to improve on the Hartford Stadium Authority?
My sense is that it's a fairly limited role. The authority at this point, all the heavy lifting has sort of been done. What I look to do is just perhaps bring some good board governance experience, because I do work very closely with boards, and also my finance background and knowledge of working with credit agencies. So potentially bring some good experiences there, so that the board can fully discharge its responsibilities. I don't have a sense that there's anything broken or anything that really needs to be addressed or improved in an immediate or significant way, but that's what I think. My hope is to just be a good voice and to be a good asset and improve as things come up on an incremental basis.
Thank you for that.
So, Attorney Wellman, so as a proud Trinity alum, did you go to Trinity College, sir?
Yes, I did. So I should have said that. Yeah, although I'm not originally from Hartford, I've had roots in Hartford for a while. So did my undergraduate degree at Trinity, took some time off, came back to Hartford for law school, and been in Hartford ever since. So, went to Trinity in the early '80s, and so I have that connection well, and still stay quite active at the college and in both some development and other activities.
All right. So thank you, Councilman Sanchez, for your questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to send it to council favorably for the appointment of Attorney Wellman to the Hartford Stadium Authority.
All right. I second the motion. So with that being said, it's just you and I, so it goes back favorably. Attorney Wellman, thank you for joining us today. And we appreciate your service to the city of Hartford.
And welcome aboard.
And welcome aboard.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so all right, so we'll move on to we have a very timely committee meeting in regards to Juneteenth. So I'll read the resolution. So this resolution is from Councilman Gale. And item number 2, Councilman Gale, resolution requesting that the Court of Common Council review the existing holiday schedule as is described in Chapter 2, Article 6, Division 7, Section 392 of the Hartford City Code with city labor contracts and other practices to determine and how to include Juneteenth as a city holiday, agenda item number 24. So I believe, Vaz, you're on deck for this. Can you give us an update?
Sure. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for having me. So I'm happy to give you an update. As you know, I think that there is broad agreement from the mayor and from the council, and I would extend that much further into our community that we'd like to recognize Juneteenth as an official holiday. The city currently has, I believe the state and the city both currently have 12 paid holidays. Because of the importance of Juneteenth to our community and to the country at large, we'd like to add Juneteenth. Our proposal, the city made a proposal to our unions to take one of the February holidays. We currently have 2 right back to back in February, one for Lincoln's birthday and one for President's Day, and make one of those Juneteenth holiday. There is one union where that has a provision in their contract that allows us to make that change sort of as of right, and then the others would require a consent from the unions. We approached those unions and received a positive answer from one, but a negative answer from the rest. And so we're unable to move forward with making that change at this time. You may be aware that I think just yesterday the Senate, the United States Senate, voted to make Juneteenth a holiday. I would note that if that were to become law, it would be a 12th federal holiday because Lincoln's birthday is not a federal holiday. And so I think for a variety of reasons, partly for consistency and partly for cost, we would rather keep the total number of holidays as is.
Councilman Sanchez?
So I thank you for that, Voss. So right now the Senate passed the bill. So right now we're also waiting for the House to pass. If it passes the House, then it would be signed by President Biden. If and once that happens, it will become a national holiday and will make this negotiation moot, wouldn't it?
That is actually not my understanding. My understanding is that it would apply to federal employees, but not necessarily. I think states, municipalities, and private businesses would sort of have to choose whether or not to participate.
That makes, and through you, Chair, that does make sense. That would apply to the federal employees. But if I recall, let's say 4th of July, it was passed and it's a federal holiday. So that I believe will encompass the nation and not be to the discretion of a municipality and or private industry.
I'm certainly happy to ask Corporation Counsel to weigh in on that. My understanding is that it would still not automatically create a holiday for state government employees or local government employees, and certainly not for private businesses. Just in the same way that, for example, there are lots of, grocery stores and things that are open on those days, just as an example.
Okay, thank you, Voss. I look forward to investigating more on this issue, especially if it does pass the House.
So Voss, thank you for being here. And so the question that I have is, what ultimately ends up happening as far as historically with the holidays is there's a domino effect, right? In that you'll see a national passage, and then you'll see a state, and then you would see the local happen. Assume, let's walk down this line, and if you don't have the foreshadowing or what have you, that's fine. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but let's say the national happens and then the state adopts it. Now, from your understanding through state representation, would that kind of force our hand at the local level?
I think it would depend on what the specific language that would be adopted by the state. I think that's probably the most that I could detail that I could give.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Again, thank you for coming and updating, and we'll continue this conversation. I'm sure it's still part of our committee, and very timely in that this Saturday is Juneteenth. So we'll continue to bring it up at this committee. We don't want to see this sunset, but I would recommend, Councilman Sanchez, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to postpone it to the next meeting, and pending on what happens at the federal and state level.
I second the motion. So seeing no one else here, so moved. So motion's approved. So thank you, Voss, for joining us this evening and giving us an update. Very timely in that you see a national movement past the Senate, and then it being very timely in the fact that Juneteenth is this Saturday. So we want to keep it relevant from our committee to the community's eyes and ears. And so thank you again, Voss, for joining us this evening. Thank you,
Councilman. We hope to have good news on this and celebrate Juneteenth in the appropriate way, as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that being said, we'll move to item number 4, which is, and here representing, which is a summer youth employment update. So this is teed up for Director Kim Oliver. Director Oliver, whatever you like to provide us in terms of summer youth, we've had a lot of, Councilman Sanchez and I had a lot of questions from constituents about youth signing up, the deadlines, you know, kind of the same par for course that we've been doing for years. So if you could give us the update, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. It's great to be here, and thank you for the invitation to speak. If you don't mind, I'm going to attempt to share a PowerPoint. Hopefully that works.
Yeah, I think I set it up so that people can share, but if not, I can make you host if that's.
It's working.
It's working? Okay, cool.
Hopefully. My computer's a little slow, but I think it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We see it. Yep, it's coming up.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So, definitely going to talk about summer youth employment this evening. And yes, we're in the beginning portion of the actual program. Of course, it hasn't started yet. So there will be time where we need to come back to actually talk about data, results, that type of thing. But just going to give you a sense of where we are and just a quick overview for the benefit of obviously both who know the program, but also others who may be watching as well. So with that, I'm going to go to my next slide. So summer youth employment, Hartford has been a leading city across the country and actually across the world as it relates to summer youth employment, and we're very proud of that. As part of that, I just wanted to do a quick reminder about what it does and let you know that over these next two slides, I have some information, and this information is based on an analysis that we completed in 2018 for our Hartford program. So when you see some of this information, know that it actually is valid data for our Hartford specific program. So of course, developing that work readiness and education skills, critical, but really wanted to lift up that our actual high school graduation rates are actually higher for those who actually participate in the program. What we did for our analysis was we actually compared the data for everyone who applied for the program and also for those who just actually completed and actually participated in the program, and that's where we were able to get our control populations, et cetera. So needless to say, we did see a higher graduation rate when you actually participate in the program for summer youth employment. We also saw that if you stayed in the program and did it more than once, you had an even better graduation rate. So again, part of that engagement and also connection with just career opportunities, and also again, the skills that you develop. The other thing that has happened is the program continues to get better over time. We have seen that our participants have done a better job with things like our resume completion, their portfolio completion, which will be their resume, but also usually other pieces of information, like, for example, if they had to explore a certain industry and they did a report on that, they might do a group presentation, et cetera, as part of that portfolio. And then overall program completion, as you can see, over that time period of 2012 to about 2016 or so, we saw almost, not exactly a double, but a significant increase in actual completion of the actual program. So people beginning to take it very seriously and being able to do well in it. And again, another great number that I'd like to share with you both is the fact that our young people who are participating in the program are more likely to enroll in college as well. So with that, let's talk about where we are for this year in terms of our actual contract with Capital Workforce Partners. So of course, it's for fiscal year 22 because our summers, of course, fall into our upcoming year. So our contract this year, or for fiscal year 22, is actually going to cover 368 Hartford youth. That's out of the total of 801 Hartford youth. Now, I do have a note here that the completed application for Hartford youth as of June 7th is 1,333. One of the things you've already brought up, Councilman, is the timeline. I want to acknowledge that the application for summer youth employment initially was to close on, I believe it was May 1st. It might have been moved to May 14th, and they've kept it open and continue to keep it open. I believe right now it might be until like June 18th. Part of the reason for that is because We have seen in the past as many as 2, 3 young people for every single slot that we had available. And, you know, this year our numbers were, quite frankly, very low. We had low numbers last summer as well. Part of that was because people weren't even sure if the summer youth employment program was going to happen. And then there were some families who didn't feel comfortable, right, with their young people perhaps being on site with an employer. So we saw last year a total of about 1,600 applications in Hartford. As you see, this year is still even lower than that. So basically what Capital Workforce Partner has done in partnership with us and others has really pushed that application out to make sure that we're getting as many young people who are interested in the program to actually apply. And we could talk more about the difference of the number of 801 to that 1,333 in a moment, if you like. The contract is a sole source contract for $1 million. It's been $1 million for the past few years. As many people may know, I formerly used to work for Capital Workforce Partners, and I was the Director of Youth Services, and I ran this program on the other side of the table, actually, for the city of Hartford. And one of the things about being part of the Workforce Development Board, in addition to being able to match the funds, which I'll speak to in just a moment, is also the way the program actually is set up in terms of its tier system, the fact that we've had evaluations done on the program, we have national partners, national funding, that type of thing, where all the things that our workforce board has been able to bring to bear, as well as their work in the employer engagement space. Our funding is matched with state and philanthropic funding. That includes like Hartford Foundation. There's also some funding this year, I believe, from JPMorgan Chase as well. And as you may have heard that at the state, the governor just increased the amount of funds that was going to the state program. The state program, you may see it called CYEP. That's the Connecticut Youth Employment Program, just in case you notice that the acronyms are not exactly matching up. CWP then subcontracts with 4 different community-based organizations. They're here. They're BHCA, Blue Hill Civic Association, Center for Latino Progress, CRT, Community Renewal Team, and also our Piece of the Pie. These 4 organizations have been doing this work for years, have built up an expertise, have great relationships in community as well as with families, and do this job very, very well. Summer youth employment, by far, as many people may know, or maybe they never thought about it before, is one of the most difficult programs to actually execute because you have to do things so quickly, so fast, and you have to make sure it's legal, because if young people are working, they actually have to earn wages, be safe, and actually complete things like their W-4s, et cetera, and pay taxes and all that good stuff. CWP has also agreed to prioritize certain populations. This is a big list, and you're going to notice we're going to cover a lot of our young people in Hartford, but we thought it was important to look at these populations for various reasons, some of it being obvious. But for example, like our high-risk incoming ninth graders, as we know, ninth grade needs to be a successful year for young people. When it's not a successful year, you increase your probability that you're going to drop out of high school. So we're trying to do as much support as we can. We have found that internships is a great way to engage young people, help to make connections and build relationships, expose them to jobs that they may not have considered, et cetera, and it seems to be a really positive effect on our young people. We also have our graduating high school seniors. This year, of course, has been a tough year for our young people who are graduating. I was fortunate to be at a graduation this morning for Weaver. I'll be in a couple of graduations tomorrow, and our young people are amazing and resilient, but they've also had a year and a half of being disrupted in their education and learning because of the pandemic. So we want to ensure that they have as many opportunities possible and as many connections with people in community as well as in industry and also post-secondary as possible. We also have youth with disabilities, and this means all types of disabilities, whether they're physical, they can cognitive, they can be emotional. And again, our CBO partners have years and years of experience in this work. A DCF-involved youth, another population of young people that we want to make sure that we take care of. Low-income youth, of course, giving them the economic opportunity and support, as well as our opportunity youth. And this is a quick reminder, opportunity youth are young people ages 16 to 24 who are disconnected from both education and employment. And we have, we believe, approximately 8,000 opportunity youth, unfortunately, in our city right now. So our program goals, and I'll go through this a little deeper on the next page, but 75% of our young people are going to exceed expectations by our work-based learning readiness standards. These standards were refreshed more recently, but they actually are based on standards that were created in partnership with employers. What is it that you consider to be foundational, essential skills, or sometimes called soft skills that your young people, or just people in general, need in order to be successful at work? These are also skills, though, that, of course, allow you to be successful in life and also successful in college, et cetera. We also want our young people, 80% of them, to be able to complete the program. We'll talk about exactly those number of hours, but our program hours are usually 120 hours, and it can run from anywhere to about 4 to 6 a week over that time frame over the summer. And then about 85% of our young people will continue education and employment upon completion. Because we do have high school graduates, and we also have young adults who participate. Unfortunately, we don't always have this number at 100%, but we obviously want to make sure that young people are staying connected. So these are results from this past summer. So like the fiscal year we're currently in, but this will be summer 2020. Obviously, a very different summer for us, and you're going to see that we have some virtual opportunities here. So again, looking at those outcomes, we saw in our outcome 1, how did they do on, this is what they're called, their employee competency review. That's the work-based learning standards that I just spoke to. So you see that was an 85% target. Now we had a mix here because we did have some young people last summer doing virtual job opportunities and some doing actual on-site job opportunities. It was definitely a mix. We do expect to have some virtual again this year, just as a heads up. And again, part of that is, you know, for some employers, they just weren't in a place of readiness to accept some of our young people, or it just wasn't a safe situation for our young people, et cetera. But you see 80% virtual, 87% for site-based, where they got that score of at least 75 or higher. That's an increase year over year, but obviously we do want to get to that 85% target. 90% of our young people, they'll believe that this is very, very helpful to them and really, really enjoyed the program and actually used very or extremely and when they were expressing the values that they saw in the program. Sorry, just going to take a sip of water there. In terms of actually completing the program, we like our young people to complete at least 108 hours out of the 120 hours that the program is designed to provide. So what that means is that we had about 78% last year complete the 108 hours. That is lower, of course, than our target. However, one of the things that's interesting is that we saw so much variance last year for the program, and it was definitely impacted by COVID. We actually went into the September and even October month with the program, which obviously is very unusual. The program is called summer for a reason. You'll see that the average number of hours is actually 118 hours. So that's kind of getting to how much of a variance we were seeing. And also we had a young person that worked almost 400 hours. Now, that is not what we usually want. I just want to be very transparent about that. We rather see that goes to 2, 3 different young people, right? But we did have situations where young people were thriving and very connected, and we didn't want young people to lose out on certain opportunities if the funding was available. And so there were some cases like that, few, but there were a handful of cases like that. In terms of continuing education and entering employment at the end of the program, the target is 90%. And we did see about that 85% of our participants who were returning to high school saying, yep, I'm returning to high school. And then 5% in terms of post-secondary education or training. Again, I do want to acknowledge that 85% also includes our graduating seniors. So that number is a little off, but as you can see, we did hit the 90 or so percent. Of the 75% of those participants who are not enrolled in education afterwards, many of them were employed and some even hired by the work sites themselves. And that's been fabulous in when those opportunities arise. So I think that is it. This is a shortened version of it. So I know that there are some questions,
Sure.
and I expect that I'll be coming back so with other details soon too. But at
Yes.
that, if you have questions, go from there.
All right, cool. Thank you, Director Oliver, for sharing. Yep. Thank you, Director Oliver, for sharing that. Very comprehensive. And I just want to just acknowledge the fact that the positive numbers in terms of the impact, right? The positive numbers in terms of folks, or these young people working and it translating to positive outcomes in their lives, we're often out in the community, Councilman Sanchez and I, and, young people just want to work and, they have, they face poverty and they just, these allow them opportunities to, not only buy their pair of Jordans, right? Like I would have done or I did, but also to contribute to the home in whatever way. And so thank you for that. Mike, Councilman Sanchez, do you have a question? Yeah. Councilman Sanchez is having audios. Councilman Sanchez, you could text me questions if anything. So the biggest question, Director Oliver, that I have is the runway that allows for these youth to be able to, once the application finishes, it's such a ambitious timeline and a tight timeline from the time that it closes to the time that they're expected to work. So from my understanding, because of that, your key partners are kind of the ones that you have to kind of go with. And so you don't have the ability to expand or do other partnerships. And so, for example, a local community-based organization who wanted youth to be involved, by the time they go through their HR processes and those type of things, and they don't have enough runway to try to implement these folks. So can you get at, and I'm not sure if it's even at the city level, right? But can you get at, like, is there any movement on that, or what are your thoughts on that? Let me just leave it like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. This is a very difficult program to implement, so I do acknowledge that, and it takes a certain organizational capacity to do it. What I will say is this year, because of the American Rescue Plan dollars, the support of the council and the mayor to really say youth services and support should have some of those funds. We are opening the door with exactly what you're speaking of, other community-based organizations who are interested in youth employment opportunities. Capital Workforce Partners have outreach to other CBOs. There's a number of them. I want to say at least 6 or 7 that were not included in on this board, as well as others that continue to come to them. When we actually spoke about the youth engagement grant opportunity, we encourage people to consider youth employment. And if they wanted to do a significant application, which means for our students $25,000 or more, that they would outreach to CWP. So the reason that these providers are not included in this is our foundational grant that we make every single year. What the mayor and council have agreed to is to invest even more in youth employment. Now, of course, that's youth employment as a whole, not just summer youth employment, that being one significant piece, but not the whole piece, right? Because we're hoping to do more around like apprenticeship-like opportunities, et cetera, for our young people. So that is an opportunity that's in works right now. I actually just got another communication from Capital Workforce Partners as we're working some of that through and looking at the numbers. One of the things I want to acknowledge is the difference of the number you saw earlier, where there's 801 young people right now that CWP says that they have funds to secure their slots. And there's 1,333 young people who actually have applied in Hartford. What we are committed to is, in recommending with Mayor, is that we definitely cut into that wait list, and part of that will be done in partnership with CBOs. The other thing I want to acknowledge, though, is that you can still host a young person even if you are not receiving the direct contract. So the reason I'm saying that is because there are CEOs who have established great relationships with young people, and perhaps they're doing a camp, or perhaps they are mentoring a young person and have these other type of job opportunities you can actually still work as a work site. Now, of course, the difference is that in that case, the funding is going to the young person because they're earning wages, right? So our work sites, whether it's our CBO work sites or many of our private sector employers, they're not receiving funds to supervise our young people, et cetera, and there is work that they take on. But I wanted to acknowledge that as well, because I know that our young people have made the difference for a lot of like summer camps and other types of youth programs. But this year is different. This is a great year. If people are interested, I highly recommend, please visit Hartford Summer Unity, all one word.com. So again, hartfordsummerunity.com. That will bring you to a page on hartford.gov that speaks about Summer Unity, all the different grants and information there with a recording from a webinar and everything else. So again, this year is a little bit different. And just one last thing, I will say that a couple of years ago, we did a slight change in the contract where we provided some upfront funds to help some of the CBOs because they would do that work you were mentioning, Councilman, without any support, right? So their funding would literally start July 1 on. And usually to do summer youth employment, you've been working for months. You might have been working as early as February, even though you might not be the one doing the initial applications, et cetera. You're looking for staff, you're trying to get all that stuff going. So while it's a smaller amount of dollars, the city of Hartford, to my knowledge, is the only funder that provides some upfront dollars for our CBO partners to be able to help with that financial burden of on-ramping the program.
Yeah. So just two more questions, and I won't hold you longer, Director. The second question I have is there seems to also in the community to be, I don't want to call it a problem, but the difference between youth ages 14 up to 18 and 18 and over. It seems that it's much easier to have the 18 and over work because of you know, background checks and those type of things. I know and then under 18, it's illegal to run a background check on youth. How has the summer youth program overcome this challenge, or is this something that, you know, that needs to be done at the state end?
Yeah, we really haven't run into that at any real scale. I'm not saying that we haven't had issues here or there. So you're correct, because obviously for 18, you're considered an adult.
Right.
With certain rules come into play. But when it comes to the Department of Labor, as you likely know, Councilman, the age is actually 16. That's the really important age. 14, obviously you can work legally because we wouldn't have you in the program if you couldn't. Right. But there's a limit on the type of jobs you can do. So for example, you can't work in a kitchen anywhere because guess what? There are knives and other machinery in there that you could really hurt yourself. 15, it gets a little bit looser, and then 16, you can do basically any job. What we actually have seen is that we actually don't get a lot of older youth or young adults. Actually, when we're looking at some of the applications earlier on, it was actually less than 100 that were what we would call in that older youth or even opportunity youth space. They're mostly younger youth. Traditionally, the program is more of a 14, it officially goes to 14 to 21, but more 14 to about that 18-year-old because it was lining up with high school. But I could definitely work with CWP a little bit more on that question and just get some more information. And of course, if you have a specific situation, please let me know. Of course. Because what we don't want to do is have that to be a reason a young person doesn't have an experience.
Right. And then the last thing, I think that there's a, I think in our society, right, our labor trade and systems and youth, there was a push, there was, you know, heavy into trade, right? I think in, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Then there was a deviation, like everyone needed college. And now you're starting to see, at least the way that I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this push towards trades. Is there any partnership regarding trades with these summer youth employment programs so that they could start building trades or stuff like that?
So the answer is yes. We know that those are high in-demand jobs, there are also jobs that pay extremely well. To your point, Councilman, I mean,
Right.
some of our young people usually need a little bit of type of post-secondary education,
Right.
if it's whether a certificate program or some type of training. But, you know, our young people are starting in the 40s, 60s, et cetera, with that. So I would agree with you. What I will say is that while we do have those opportunities, those are not our top industries. Our top industries are usually like retail. And I know that, quite frankly, retail gets a bad rap at times because it's retail and it's not necessarily a job that, although I will say some of our stores right now, and including Amazon, might be changing that, but the wages usually are a little bit lower. And that's one of the reasons that we don't always promote those. But we have found our retail employers to actually be employers who welcome our youth the most. Part of it just because of the business that they run, but they're also able to provide them employment opportunities later, et cetera. However, with that said, we have certain manufacturers in our region who have been extremely supportive of summer youth for years. Many of them are smaller to mid-sized manufacturers. A lot of them are the ones that when we talk about, we need a machinist, the CNC machinist.
Right.
They're the ones that we're actually talking about. So they'll usually bring in a young person. No, you're not going to work on their machine. Their machines cost $50,000 up, sometimes $1 million. Right. No, you're not going to work on that. But you may help them, or they have their team like in quality improvement or assisting with a manager, getting exposure to manufacturing, et cetera. And there's actually a specific push, especially for manufacturing, as you probably could guess. The building trades, we definitely work with the building trades and some other wonderful opportunities. We do have to watch the age, as I mentioned to you, because we have to be 16 in some cases. But we have found that, again, we've had some really great employers provide wonderful experiences for our young people. And sometimes our young people do those jobs and they love it. And sometimes they come back and go, you know what? This is not me. This is not what I want to do. Right.
So you can learn it early. Yeah. No, definitely.
So, but I would definitely want to acknowledge that is definitely there. The numbers, though, so when you see our top sectors, they're usually not going to rise at the top. What I will tell you is, and you know, I'm not going to believe everything on the pandemic, but it did slow down. What we were trying to do was increase and even deepen the employer engagement work that we were doing, because many of our manufacturers sit at a round table that is co-convened by Capital Workforce Partners, and really trying to get them in front of those manufacturers. I will tell you, there's more success when those are 18 or older, and it's not usually because of background check. It's more, again, safety on the floor and that kind of thing. But we definitely need to do more work in that space.
Definitely. So that being said, I know Councilman Sanchez, he hasn't sent me a question yet, so I assume he's okay with the report. So with that being said, thank you, Director, for presenting. Yes, Councilman Sanchez.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So you asked just about all the questions that I was hoping to ask, and thank you, Director Oliver, for everything that you do. Your presentation was great and impressive, and I love the fact that we have a high percentage of children that are actually benefiting from this, and also the success. Thank you for that.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you. So with that being said, Director, I don't see any more comments. I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved. Yeah. So moved. All right. Have a good evening, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Director, again. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right. Bye.